Welcome back. Now, tonight we bring you two stories of redemption. First, you'll hear from Pete Ouko, who walked into a police station to find out why his wife's body was found dumped near a police station fence. He would instead be wrongfully convicted for her murder and spend 18 years in Kamiti Maximum Prison. While on death row, he would earn a diploma in law from the University of London and eventually be released under presidential pardon. He later founded Crime Si Poa, a leading grassroots anti-crime organization. Then we have Teresa Njoroge, who was jailed for 1 year for a financial crime she never committed. She was held with her daughter, who was just months old, at Langata Women's Prison. Teresa would eventually be cleared by the Court of Appeal, after which she founded Clean Start Solutions, a social enterprise focused on transforming the lives of vulnerable, marginalized, poor, imprisoned, and formerly imprisoned women and their children. Watch. It's a very unique place to be in. Not very many people can say they've served time for something they've never done. And so you're having to rebuild this public image, this social collateral that literally went within a matter of days for something you weren't even aware of that was going on. Take us to the day, and I remember you were talking about how you felt. You had your face plastered on TV, on newspapers. What happened in terms of the social impact?
Yeah. So, I was going on about my daily work. I was working as a banker and going on with my life. It was the beginning of the year, so you've made your New Year's resolutions and you've projected, things are looking good. And then this day comes, you report to work, you get arrested, and everything goes south. Things flipped just like that. Lost my career, lost my reputation, my social standing, embarrassed. You don't even know where to start explaining or vindicating yourself from what's just going on, because what people are consuming is that you're a bank thief. It's airing in the news, it's in the newspapers, and you're in court. The next thing you know, you're being held in remand, and everything's just running by so quickly, you really can't understand what's happening. And friends gone, family doubting you. A very difficult situation because you weren't prepared. You didn't see this coming. I mean, you've been going on with your life very okay, and then all of a sudden, you're now being called a criminal and everyone's running away from you. It's a very difficult place to be because you don't understand how to even handle it. Yeah.
Pete, and you know this all too well, the same thing that Teresa described, there's no room for you to even explain. No one wants to hear what you have to say when this burden is dropped on you. In your case, and you're kind of going through, it's a whirlwind.
They went to find out what had happened to my late wife, so I wasn't arrested by any cop anywhere. So on reaching there and whatever happened and the people who did it, I don't want to go into that. That's a long story. But the key thing is, it was a moment of unbelief. Like, hey, you're close guys, why should you be doing this to me? Instead of giving me condolences, this is what I'm getting. So for me, it was about a day of processing. Then I realized the odds were stacked against me, not from my family, not from my friends, not from the people who knew me. For mine it was a bit different because people knew me, and the same friends I had were my late wife's friends. So instead of running away, they lumped up and walked with me. So I've never been alone. I'll be very honest, I never walked alone for my 18 years because, in fact, they continued pouring into me. Whether I was in prison, whether I was in remand, they continued pouring into me. So what I realized at that moment was that there was love. So we had to focus on the bigger picture. Why are you here? You're trying to fight an unjust system. How are you going to fight it? So I think it went from this painful occurrence to Your kids have been taken away. You are all in this space where people could be calling you names, right? At the back of your mind, you know, people have doubt. Yeah. Right? Irrespective of what I was seeing and people coming to visit me. I think I was the most visited inmate in prison, you know, for that time. Yeah. But I think despite all that, at the back of my mind, I was like, someone must be having doubts. I mean, people would ask me like, Pete, if it's not you, then why did they pick on you? You know, and that then you try to explain it under the certain setup that we had, where people believe that the moment a cop arrests you, then you're guilty. Mm-hmm. They don't know about due process. They don't know about fabrication of evidence. They don't know about, you know. So that was the space I came into, where people didn't have knowledge and information about what happens in the criminal justice space, in as much as we knew we were walking through a broken down judicial system. That was in '98, when we had a totally broken down judicial system. And so what happened is you stay in police custody for 30 days instead of 14 days. You go to court, there's no evidence against you. You ask for the evidence, you're taken to remand. Nothing still, you're taken back to police station for another 30 days. So I was in police custody, not remand, for 60 days in total. You know, which is blatantly illegal. But yeah, that was the system. But back just to your question is that instead of losing friends, I made more friends. Yeah.
Incredible. You know, and Teresa, I'm sure throughout that whole time, and probably even still today, you asked, why me? You know, of all the people, why? Has that question for you ever been answered, or are you still kind of grappling with it?
Fortunately, because of what that journey eventually offered me, that's an opportunity to see how we live in our comfort. And you think, you know what, things are going on well for me. The other people are probably not doing well because they're not, you know, they're not as hardworking as I am. I'm succeeding on merit. I am a likable person. I am performing well, and that's why I'm succeeding, you know. And you think to yourself, probably the others are not succeeding because they're not putting in as much effort. And, you know, that kind of mindset that we have in our comfort zone. And when I got into prison and seeing how broken the system was from arrest, you know, because the arresting officer asked for bribes throughout, and realizing that if you do not pay your bribes, then you're being handed over to prosecution, to the DPP. Then DPP, you then move on to the courts, the judicial system. You're still being asked for bribes, and yet they know that you didn't commit this crime. They know that so very well, and they say to you, if you don't exchange some money, then I was asked, have you ever been to Langata Women Maximum Prison? And I said no. And the officer said to me, then you're going to go there if you do not give us the money. And then you end up in prison thinking, goodness me, is this how justice is administered in this country? If I don't give you a bribe, as much as you know I'm not guilty, I'll still end up being imprisoned. And then you get to prison and you meet hundreds of other women who share their stories with you, and you open your eyes and you're like, goodness me, I was wrong to think that I was succeeding because I was hardworking. I was whatever boxes you have for yourself that you check. You meet people who do not have opportunities, economic opportunities, education opportunities, and you think to yourself, goodness, this system in its broken state affects hundreds, if not millions, of citizens in this country. And so I got to a point where I stopped asking myself why, because I was so deep in it, and started realizing that, you know what, I'm here and it's my responsibility, amongst many others who I'd love to create awareness to of what's happening, that we are responsible to change the ills that we see in society. We cannot continue sitting in our comfort zone, in our social circles, and not think about those who are poor or vulnerable. Because And just to talk about these women who I had met, 90% of whom are mothers, sole breadwinner, who left her children, and you're in this space, and she's saying to you, the only thing I'd love to know is how my children are, because I left home to go look for something to bring back home, but I got arrested, hawking or however it is she was trying to make ends meet. And now I do not know how my children are. So I no longer ask, why me? Of course, when I was going through that criminal justice system, I asked why so many times, and I just couldn't wait to get off it, because I thought to myself, not me. This place is not for people like me who are law-abiding citizens. There's nothing wrong I've done. This place belongs to people who break laws. But there I was and got to learn that no, people who break rules actually don't belong here. It's so reverse. Yeah. People who break rules and pay bribes and, you know, have those side conversations don't end up here. It's the poor, it's the vulnerable, it's the people who want to do right that are going through this system. And so my work had been cut out to reverse what I had been through, being silenced and shunned while being so innocent, and then seeing hundreds of other women who pretty much didn't have opportunities be taken through this system. And for me, I was like, we've got to stop this.
You know, Pete, and having listened to what Teresa had to go through, and many other women, and in your case, and many other men as well, you can't help but become hardened by an experience like that. How did you get through that season? Because I'm sure you were very angry at the system and how things ended up for you and many other individuals. But how do you break out of that hardness, if you will?
I wasn't angry. I decided to forgive from the word go. Anger couldn't have helped me come through what I was going through. Anger could have made me seek revenge, for example. And the first thing I did was just to forgive. Having forgiven, it was how to fix that system, as Teresa said. We knew it was broken. And we knew there was so much we can do from inside. But we had friends outside. We had the Vickies, we had the other people out here. Why couldn't we reach them? Why couldn't we write memorandum and start pushing for this? I mean, if you look at our new constitution, there's lots of stuff under the persons, under Article 49, right to fair trial, under 51, rights of arrested persons. There's lots of input that came from inmates. Because we knew where the shoe was pinching. We knew where people are messing up things. When we say that in the event that your case has gone to the end and new and compelling evidence comes across, that you can go back to court and seek redress and seek retrial, that is what we had in mind. Luckily, or by God's grace, it was incorporated in our constitution. And many people are going back or have gone back to court with new and compelling evidence. Unfortunately, our judiciary didn't know how to handle that because it's new ground. But other jurisdictions are already doing that. If Pete was wrongfully convicted, Teresa was wrongfully convicted, there are many Petes and Teresas. You know, so if we focus on Pete and Teresa, we are losing the bigger focus on the other people who also need the same support. But if we focus on the system, Pete and Teresa will be out, Pete and Teresa will be out, then the others also who don't deserve to be there will be moving out. The ones who need to stay there and be rehabilitated, they'll accept what they're going through, walk through the rehabilitation and come out home. So to me, I don't believe in anger. You know, I believe in being angry at the wrong thing and seeking ways of fixing it.
Right.
You know, yeah.
Wow. I mean, that is incredible. Very few people actually would think that way, having gone through what you did. But Teresa, you shared a very interesting encounter. When you entered Langata Women's Prison, was the amount of humanity you experienced when you were there, more so than when you're out here. What did that teach you in that experience and that time?
Yeah. As you rightfully said, Vicky, when I got into prison, I had this attitude of, I don't want these criminals coming anywhere near me or my daughter. We are precious, as we're not criminals. From what I have heard, people who come to prison are criminals, they're bad. That's the socialization we grew up with. And that was my first week, first month But slowly, as it sank that, you know what, you're not leaving. You're here to serve a 1-year sentence, and so this will be home for a while. I started finding out, why are you here? You know, the hundreds of women who we shared the space with. And as I listened to their stories, it broke my heart. It broke my heart, and it did shine a light on me of how naive we are in the corporate world, in the business world, where we do not think about what's going outside of our space. Because I had never thought about those who miss out on opportunities to continue with school, those who miss out on work opportunities, the high unemployment rates I would hear about, the high poverty rates that I would hear about. I had never seriously thought about the people who are affected and who make up those statistics. But here we were spending time with. And it was, you know, the equalization of, we were all known by our numbers, our admission numbers. I was 415/11, and everyone knows that's me. And I'm no longer Teresa Njoroge, the bank manager. No titles. It doesn't matter what your tribe is. I mean, I never saw a woman come to me and say, are you a Kikuyu? Are you a Kamba? Are you a... That doesn't matter. I'm a woman. I'm a mother. We are here in this pit together. And solidarity to get out of here together is what really matters. It was the coming together with no masks, but really connecting sister to sister that really touched my heart. To see women at their lowest try their best with nothing to support a fellow sister, while knowing too well the corporate world where I came from, with everything we had. Before I get out of my comfort zone to think about another sister, it's competition. It's
so vicious out here when you think about just the camaraderie you described, the sisterhood you described. Pete, I remember watching another forum where you said the moment you got into prison, it was like time stopped. 18 years is not a short time. And when you finally got the redemption of the presidential pardon, being released, did it change your perspective and your feeling towards freedom? How did you view life outside now? And did you feel that clock ticking again the moment you walked out?
To me, clock ticking, starting again. You know, every day in prison, I used to believe that since I'm innocent, I'm going home the next day.
Yeah.
So one thing my colleagues in prison will tell you is that I used to wake up very early because we had a very short time in the morning. I'd take a cold shower and then I'd be ready to go home.
Wow.
So for 18 years, every day I kept hope alive. I mean, my faith is very strong. So my hope was always alive. That never diminished. However gloomy it was, however dark it was, I always knew the sun would always rise. But the key thing is, I never saw the sunset for those many years.
Yeah.
And I remember this day when I'm home and I'm just walking home in the evening, then I see the sun setting, and I'm like, that looks different. Because you see, the walls in prison are all high. Yeah. So in as much as you'll see it going down the wall, you'll never see it completely setting. But here I was in this nice green setup, and I just saw the sun. And I just stood there, and I think that's the time I cried. I was like, God, what are you teaching me through this? One thing, it taught me, never take any second for granted. If you can impact someone, don't tell them you'll do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Do it right there and then. Don't talk about loving people in prison when you can go visit them in prison. If you can't visit them, you can support them in one way or another. There are avenues through which you can do that. The organizations that are working in prisons, there's a prisons department that has opened its doors. Have that time.
Teresa, I think I'll wrap up with you just in terms of, one, the feeling of redemption and finally being vindicated. And then what you hope will be, and Pete kind of talked about it, in terms of the next generation, destigmatizing people who've gone through your same experience. How do we begin that process? And hopefully this conversation is one of those things. But in your view, what will it take to destigmatize?
It takes all of us. And just to talk about redemption, restoration, Vicky, it hurts to see hundreds of thousands who are imprisoned, get in and out of prison, back into society, hoping for a second chance in life. But to be honest, it's really not a second chance. For most of them, it's a first chance in life to get it right, because these chances were never accorded to them, most of them, in the very first place. But even if it was and they made a mistake, they have paid the price.
Right.
But to see them really long for that redemption, restoration, and for us as a society continue stigmatizing them and saying you're an ex-con, brand them with that title, you're an ex-con. It defeats the purpose of correction. It defeats the purpose of having gone through the criminal justice system for them to then come back to society and rebuild their lives.
Yeah.
It beats that purpose. As Pete said, the people who are ailing are not called ex-corona patients, ex-cancer patient, no, they heal, and we now see them for who they are. Why not so for we who have come out of prisons? Why not? We've paid such a heavy price. So just see this woman, see this man, see this youngster for who they are and accord them this second chance. What does it take? It takes each and every one of us, from the local communities, the faith-based organizations, these churches, the corporate world, the judicial system. It takes each and every one of us to play a role in restoration and understanding what people have been through and what they're trying to do to rebuild their lives and to support whichever, however they could. So whether it's for the lawmakers to see to it that we have more non-custodial sentences, whether it's whoever has that power to see to it that the youth who are coming out of the correctional institutions have education opportunities, scholarships, vocational training, and they are included. They are included and they are thought about.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Teresa and Pete. Stories of redemption, forgiveness, a second chance. I hope it's inspired you as much as they've inspired me as well. And you can probably also share your story of redemption as well on the hashtag Citizen.